A man is shown at the start of the movie, who was looking troubled. He also has his 2 kids along with him. Girl child's name is Gretel while boy child is Hansel. After a time, he brings his both kids in a frightening forest. Then he leaves the forest, abandoning his both kids alone there. Both kids were all alone in that forest. They are wandering to and fro. They also glimpse a house named Gingerbread House there. They enter that house. There was a standing witch exactly in front of them. The witch makes both kids captive. She imprisons Hansel, while she takes the domestic services from Gretel. Gretel had realized that witch is aspiring to engulf her brother, because that witch had ignited the fireplace, so that she may eat Hansel after cooking in it. As it proceeds to kill Hansel, then Gretel pierces it a dagger which leaves witch wounded, and it falls down there. Then Gretel is releasing her brother. That witch stands once again, and it moves ahead towards them to end them. Then Hansel pushes it. Consequently, she falls into the furnace. Both siblings imprisoned that witch into that furnace, and that witch burns to death. This tale is spread everywhere gradually. How did brother and sister end a threatening witch? Afterwards, they hunted many witches and they were called Hansel and Gretel witch hunters. Many years later, village's scene is shown. That village was haunted. Those witches had abducted some of the villagers including kids. No one could get the dead body of those missing people. A police officer comes there who decides to finish a girl, because that girl was accused of witchcraft by him. Then sibling Hansel and Gretel approach the who forbid police officer to do as such. Hansel detects that girl is not a witch but an ordinary human. Police officer captures her, putting her under suspicion. Mayor had called Hansel and Gretel for the elimination of witchcraft, so they may provide safety to everyone. But police officer dislikes it. But Mayor had decided it, that both siblings will remain with them in the village. Mayor dispatches Hansel and Gretel to an old hut of the forest. They encounter a witch there who is looking frightening and mysterious. That witch attacks Gretel and leaves that place. But it is captured by Hansel, and here is a brutal fight between them. That witch is again about to escape, but Gretel entraps it. Now that witch was entrapped by them. Hansel and Gretel visit Mayor. They tell they did not get any account about the missing people from this witch, but they found out a map in witch's possession, which indicated that there will be lunar eclipse after 3 days. Moreover, other people had also been missing. Hansel says, "I think those witches are involved in all these happenings." Hearing it, Mayor offers him an amount of money and says he requests to bring those missing people and kids safe and sound at any cost. Mayor calls a man there who will accompany Hansel and Gretel to eliminate the witches, because he had knowledge about all tracks of the forest. On the opposite side, police officer had no trust in Hansel and Gretel, so he offers payment to the hunters, so they may release the missing people and kids from the witches, going into the forest. Those hunters reach the forest at night. Meantime, a lady arrives there as they are conversing with one another. She says, "This forest is threatening and it is not out of danger to visit this forest late at night." Hunters say, "We are here to search for some kids." Immediately, that lady's face is revealed. In fact, it is a witch which is too horrific. This witch has been called a Grand Witch in this movie, because it had many devilish powers. All hunters begin to flee, seeing the witch. But that witch kills all hunters violently one by one. Hansel and Gretel are talking about the place of witch to that person. That man tells, there is also a giant of those witches in the forest which is loyal to them. A boy approaches there as they are talking about it with one another, who was the admirer of Hansel and Gretel. That boy also wished to be witch hunter to help them, and he also wanted to be renowned. But Hansel attempts to explain to him, it is not the piece of cake to end the witches. Then missing kids had been shown in the cellar of the forest. Witches had imprisoned them. A giant was keeping an eye on those kids. Grand Witch brings a child there. There are 3 witches. Grand Witch takes the life of that kid. Then 3 witches suck the blood of that kid. That Grand Witch was practicing a ritual and sorcery to attain more strength. But it was not getting success in its black art in spite of these sacrifices. A witch moves to the forest in order to hunt after some days. All of a sudden, it hears the sounds of a crying child. Moving ahead, it finds a sitting child there. Coming near to the child, the witch comes to know that it was just a set trap for it. Because there was just a dummy, not any child. That dummy had been used as a trap to seize the witch. After a while, Hansel and Gretel also reach there. Both take that witch in the village while capturing. Hansel and Gretel interrogate that witch. But that witch does not reveal the minute details. It begins to act weirdly. As a result, Hansel hits it. That witch reveals that 12 kids are required for us to practice the sorcery. They have got 11 kids and only one kid has left to get. That witch tells that 12th kid will also be taken tonight by our Grand Witch. And their black art will also be accomplished. And this world will be ruled by witches. Then the Grand Witch reaches there, who throws the fireballs on the village, using its power. Gretel and that man attempt to stop it. But that witch is vigorous. That witch grabs Gretel and begins to end it. Meanwhile, that man stops it, firing the gun. Grand Witch also starts practicing its black art on him. That man fires a gun on himself under the effects of black art and meets his fate. Coming there, that boy takes Gretel with him from there. Then, it is seen that the giant of witches is taking a girl with it to practice the black art. Hansel proceeds to stop it, but third witch struggles to hinder him. There is great tussle between them. That witch instantly flies from there. That witch falls Hansel from its broomstick, going at a place. Then it is witnessed, those witches have brought a great devastation in that village. As a result, police officer is in a fit of rage. That police officer provokes Mayor. Those witch hunters are not giving any output. Because those witches had again abducted another girl in spite of their presence. Mayor interrupts police office. But police office puts him into death, firing his gun. On the other side, Gretel had also restored her consciousness. The boy exposes everything to her, who had brought Gretel here. Gretel is worried enough because of her lost brother. Then Hansel is seen, who was dangling with a tree. Hansel is rescued by a girl. She is the same girl whom police officer was killing, accusing her of witchcraft. Hansel had saved her. Gretel comes to that forest in search of her brother. But police officers and his companions attack her. Now Gretel is also captured. She wounds the police officer, assaulting. That police officer loses his temper over it. He comes forward to slay Gretel. Then that giant appears there, who was loyal with witches. The giant ends all police officers individually. The giant also kills that police officer, crushing him under his foot. Gretel was wounded pathetically. The giant brings Gretel to a place. Someone heals Gretel, placing the medicinal herbs on her wounds. Gretel comes to know that giant cannot harm her, so she should not be afraid from it. After a time, the giant also leaves from there. It is late night and Hansel comes closer to a house, searching out those witches. Entering the house, Hansel notices that there is his sister Gretel sitting there. Both brother and sister are pleased while seeing each other unharmed. Afterwards, they know that the house where they are now is actually their childhood dwelling. And their father had left them in the woods from this house. They are surprising, why did their father commit as such with them? Then the Grand Witch appears there, who reveals to both of them the secret and the reason behind it. She tells, there are also the pious witches along with the evil ones in this world. It has been named White Witch. Many years ago, a white witch fell in love with a farmer. They both married and 2 kids begot. But this news disturbed Grand Witch. How may a witch be a wife of any human? So Grand Witch revealed before everyone that farmer's wife is a witch. This was the cause that farmer abandoned his both kids in the forest on the saying of witch. And he returned to the house. Being late, it was futile. And villagers burnt the pious witch who was White Witch. That farmer was also sentenced to death while hanging. As why did he hide the reality? As a matter of fact, farmer and White Witch were the parents of Hansel and Gretel. The Grand Witch says, we need the heart of White Witch to accomplish black art. As being the daughter of White Witch, Gretel's heart was their requirement. Both brother and sisters attack Grand Witch as it is exposing this story. But that Grand Witch falls Gretel down during this assault. And it also stops Hansel from doing so. Grand Witch pierces a dagger into Hansel's stomach. Consequently, Hansel gets wounded badly. Then Grand Witch leaves, abducting Hansel. Coming into his senses, Hansel notices that there is the same girl who has rescued her. Hansel had also recovered perfectly. She is that girl who had rescued Hansel many times. And she reveals her reality to Hansel. She tells, "I am also a witch in actual fact, but I am white pious witch. That witch who is beneficial for others and unharmed. And it also does not misuse its powers." They go on a mission to release Gretel, taking all their weapons. The boy is also accompanied them. They come nearer to the witches. But it is late night now. They had set a trap there in order to end the witches. Hansel asks that girl to wait there, giving a gun to her. Grand Witch was going to practice the black art tonight. So several witches gather there. Gretel is also among them. There were complete counting of kids to accomplish the witchcraft. There was going to appear blood moon tonight. It means that Grand Witch had everything to practice black art, which was its need. Then Hansel reaches there at the spot and says to all of them, "Go away." Grand Witch assigns a duty to a witch to stop Hansel. But Hansel finishes that scent witch while shooting his gun. And that girl who was White Witch also starts killing while firing her weapon. Those witches are frightened, witnessing all. They begin to go outside. But the Gatling gun of White Witch becomes out of order. The Grand Witch is coming to Gretel in order to kill her. But Giant attacks Grand Witch and stops it to do this, coming there. The second witch starts slaying 12 kids one by one. But Hansel shoots that witch, firing his gun. Grand Witch pushes the giant from the mountain. And it again attacks Gretel to kill her. Grand Witch flies from there as being alone and having no fellow. All witches are running away to secure their lives through forest. At first sight, all witches are caught in the already set trap of Hansel. And all witches begin to die while dismembering. And they are cut into pieces. Witnessing it, Grand Witch becomes aggressive. It also begins to flee. But that boy also shoots his gun on it. That gunshot strikes exactly. Consequently, there is a great explosion. Gretel also finds that giant there, which was thrown down by Grand Witch. But the giant was perfectly healed. Contrarily, 3 of them are searching for that Grand Witch. At the same time, Grand Witch attacks Hansel. The accompanied boy with Hansel is also wounded by it. Grand Witch is heading towards Hansel. But White Witch pounces on it. But Grand Witch injures White Witch, piercing the dagger. Then Hansel fires on Grand Witch through a nearby placed gun. That Grand Witch is fallen to the gingerbread house. As being fatally injured, White Witch dies. Then Gretel appears there and both attack Grand Witch, getting together. Hansel hangs that Grand Witch with the heavy chain. He starts striking it. But Grand Witch sets itself free from there. While releasing, it pounces on Hansel and Gretel. Both siblings fall that witch down at the exact time, decapitating it. Here Grand and Horrific Witch had been eradicated. Both brother and sister move ahead to hunt the remaining witches. The boy and giant also set off to assist them. And this movie completes here.